You've been looking at card fraud, potentially. People decrypting cards, hacking into cards. How prevalent a problem is it?
So MiFare is a type of RFID card used for things like access control and mass transit systems. And it's very, very prevalent. They've sold billions of the cards themselves. There's an estimate of several 100,000 of them in circulation and use at any one time. And it therefore is quite a problem if people are implementing their own security systems using these.
Is that the type of card that's used in, say, the Oyster card in London?
Yeah, absolutely.
So how would someone hack into that? Is it relatively easy to do from a technical perspective?
Well, so the Oyster card system is actually relatively well designed. It talks to a back-end database and everything is done within control of the users. But certain smaller establishments design their own security and put information on the card that's actually relevant to the security of the system itself. And then if a user can change that, then obviously they can get into the system.
You were saying about potentially companies using these for their own security purposes, that this is, for example, ID cards, smart cards for entering buildings and so forth. Do they really give a lot of thought to that type of security, the security of the security device itself, if you like?
Well, from our experience, perhaps not, especially in, like you say, in the smaller companies. The kind of thought is there's not really much thought around security at all there. I mean, for instance, the system that we talked about in the presentation, that institution was a university and they really had no idea about the security at all. They'd bought it from a third party, but again, the third party didn't seem to be aware of the security issues around the technologies that they were using. And the actual way that they'd implemented the application on top of that as well wasn't very secure, seeing as monetary values were associated and stored directly on the card and not tied to a back-end database.
Now, how would a hacker go about compromising that type of card?
So in terms of actually the card itself, you can buy a fairly cheap USB device, which is a card reader. It costs about £30 to £40. And then all the software you need is open source and freely available online. So really, that £30 card reader and then a bit of time, 3 or 4 hours, and you can recover all the data from the card itself.
So what do businesses need to do and what do their security advisors need to do to lock down some of these problems?
Well, ideally, they need to treat the data that gets stored on the card as a security token, and as such, it shouldn't contain information that can be used in its own right. So storing names and addresses and telephone numbers and things like that is a bad idea. And generally, they ought to have treated effectively as a session identifier, which then they look up in their own systems with information that they store, and they can therefore keep secure and use that as a mechanism to ensure that their system is stable and works properly.
And how easy or difficult would it be to implement those type of additional security measures?
It depends if they've already implemented a poor system or not. It will generally require a reissue of the cards, or at least having the cards be brought back in and then be scanned and changed. It's very easy to deploy as a first attempt, but if you already have an existing system, it's going to take time to fix.
And would it be your view that this is something people need to start thinking about now, because more and more of these cards are being deployed in various systems, and if they're allowed to become more prevalent without the security measures in place, that could open up a whole set of potential risks further down the line?
Ideally, yeah.
I mean, the number of cards we see that are using this particular technology is the majority of them. I mean, even in the queue for lunch today, there was a guy in front of me that after the talk was looking at his card, and he asked if I could have a look at it, and I looked at it, and it was a MiFare classic card that was vulnerable, like the ones we talked about in our presentation. So, I mean, speaking to friends I know who have got university cards, I would say 2/3 of them are using this technology, which is vulnerable to these attacks.
So treat it as if you would cash?
Yeah.
Gentlemen, thank you very much.
No problem, thank you.